This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Then, welcome. Today is Monday, December 18th, 2023. This is the Easthampton Energy Advisory Committee. I am Jamie Paquette, Chair of the committee, bringing the meeting to order, joined by members Connie Dawson, Josh Rosenblatt, John Pepe, Cassie Eckhoff on the virtual screen over there, and Cassie Trugget, the conservation agent from the city of Easthampton. First order of business is to review and approve the minutes from the November 18th meeting.
May I move that we postpone that since no one's had a chance to read it?
Okay, I gave it a quick once over here.
Okay, it's up to you guys.
You know, I didn't say anything about my current, bailiwick on the buses, other than we're punting till January in the next election.
Right.
I'm sure you got that right. I trust everyone else on the other side.
And I'm abstaining because I wasn't.
Sure. Well, do you want to move to pass to
Okay.
approve the minutes?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes from, because Connie never gets.
Anyone like to second?
Great, I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you, guys. All right, minutes are approved. Yeah, please feel free to submit. We can look at them again. You do a good job of capturing everything that we talk about, so.
It looks shorter this time. Oh, well, maybe not.
Maybe a little shorter. The first part is kind of long.
Do you really listen, you really go through the audio?
I do,
Yeah,
I do.
That's your
It's probably a
mistake. You should just go
mistake.
from memory.
I have no memory.
Notes.
That would be.
Okay, now's the time we have reserved for public speak. I think you said our member of the public here is actually from Mass CEC, so if we wanna, well, we can jump around, we can move that up the agenda to have them talk first.
Same person.
Different person.
Different person.
Yeah, last
okay.
time was Meg Howard.
So we'll reorder the agenda here slightly. First, though, we do want to say a quick welcome to our new members, Cassie Eckhoff officially, and again, I apologize for the extra F in your name on the agenda. I think I just assumed and didn't double check it first. And Josh Rosenblatt, who is here for his first meeting.
Thank you.
So thank you all for stepping up and volunteering. It's nice to have full participation in this, again, the first time in a while that we've had full continuing of 5, so welcome. Anything you all would like to say real quick? Introduce yourselves, your background.
I'll just, since you asked, I'll tell you what my background with the city is. My wife and I moved here from the DC area in 2002. I started working from home in the mid-90s, and so moving up here was seamless, and I went from home and came down in about 2010 and got on the EBIC. And I worked on the EBIC for about 10 or 12 years. I was chair for 5 and stopped a year and a half-ish ago. And Cassie turned me onto the EAC, and it sounds like something we could really do. So
Nice.
I'm happy to join.
Excellent.
Is there gonna be resentment from the EDIC that we're stealing all its members?
Well, Cassie's doing double duty.
Okay, still, you're staying on the EDIC.
And I'm not sure how much I missed me when I left the EAC.
Where were you from in the DC area?
Rockville, Maryland.
Okay, I grew up in Silver Spring.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were there for 18 years.
Wow, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, my wife grew up in this area, and I'm a California boy.
Okay.
So,
Where the city do you live in?
San Francisco?
Or no, this one.
Oh, this one,
This is the city.
Ashley Circle, up Mount Bolo.
Okay, right where all the water is. Okay.
Yeah, beyond the water. I swam the ponds.
And Cassie, you were here last time, but you want to officially introduce yourself and give us a little background?
Sure. I came to Easthampton in 2019 from Boston. And I live over on Rockenberg Street. My dogs and I are very, very happy here. I spent my career in healthcare quality management, and now I'm not working full time except for a really fun gig taking minutes for all the elementary schools in the Hampshire Regional School District. I love it. So I'm really learning a lot about town politics and school boards. So, and
Is that all night work? Is that all
Pardon
night work? Is that all night work?
yeah,
Yeah.
It's a good call.
Did you say you live in Briggs?
I live on Brick Street.
Oh, I just went over on Nipper.
Oh, cool.
And I was on Briggs until a year ago, so.
Oh my gosh. Oh, cool.
See a dog walking now.
Yeah.
Beagles. I've got beagles. So, and then I do serve on Edict. I joined the committee when I first moved to Easthampton, and I'm not going to be shy about this. I was the driving force behind the vacant storefront initiative. So I'm kind of proud of that. And I'm really excited to be on this committee because everybody seems really hardworking and committed, and it's really great to be with you guys.
Well, it's really wonderful to have 2 new members. I feel like there's so much more energy in this room right now. Thank you so much. We're really glad you're here.
My pleasure.
One other thing I'll mention for the new members is there is another committee being set up right now called the Bees Committee. You may have heard this referred to at the Climate Action Plan thing. We have been asked to provide 1 member of our committee to serve on that one as well. Right now, that's me. There haven't been any meetings. I only got a preliminary email from somebody a few weeks ago that I just responded to, sort of outlaying or laying out what topics and things they may be covering, but I haven't heard any more about that so far. But this is to say, Cassie or Josh, if either of you has an interest in being a part of that committee as well, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to relinquish if somebody has a particular interest.
What is it?
It's Bees Committee is around things like pollinators and like environmental issues that would affect sort of native wildlife and sort of overall environmental quality, things of that nature.
Okay.
Is this Owen's committee?
It is Owen's committee. Yeah, it came out of him wanting to be designated as sort of like a bee city, I think. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And like there's certain things around that, policies and things that you can do to support that. And so it comes out of that part. You want to say something?
And all I can add to that is that we did craft, the planning department, a pollinator action plan is what they're calling it.
Right.
So that could be something that people on the bees committee could try to like pursue the things that are listed there, which are some of the more like example pollinator gardens in the community and things like that. So cool stuff.
Yeah, so there'll be other members of other committees also serving on that, as well as I think people from city council, and there's some overlap certainly with some of the stuff we're talking about here, as well as the climate action plan and even the EDIC things probably too. So it's all intertwined.
Have they established when they're gonna meet?
They have not yet, so I can forward along the email I got that sort of laid out if you want to take a look at that, and then we can discuss as they get meetings set up, how we want to handle that. Let's see, and just as another quick update, I mentioned before we started recording, I did go to the Edict meeting, which was the day after ours last time around. Shared some information about the climate action plan, the upcoming things there. A few other pieces of info they were asking. So they're concerned or interested in finding ways to incentivize businesses to do things like solar or electric vehicle infrastructure, right? They're thinking about that from a business standpoint or from like the EDIC standpoint, what they can do sort of to help push that forward, or what we as a city can do. So I don't know, Cassie, you can refresh my memory. It didn't seem like there were too many concrete things that came out of that quite yet, but it's definitely something that's on their radar as like the things that they're trying to think about. And so we can think about that here too, right? Ways that we can, things like we already have a pretty solid list of things that we're working on right now. But if there are.
It seems to me one of the biggest problems we have had is finding out how to actually contact businesses. And we just haven't been successful. We had very low participation when we did that survey. and just trying to get them to come to our workshops about the climate action plan. Somehow we don't have the right tools to communicate with businesses, and that's something that we really need to develop because we really want to have them on board when the climate action plan goes into effect. So any input, any help we can get with that would be very well received.
Yeah. Yeah, how much contact does EDIC have with businesses like directly?
We face the same challenges you do.
Yeah.
And we typically rely on Mobilivo from the chamber to help us reach businesses.
And has that been working? Because we have tried to coordinate with them.
Yeah, primarily we worked with the chamber when we did advertising for the events and for the survey. And the only other actions we took was we sent out a mailer directly to folks along the industrial park area. And then we handed out the flyers to every business along Cottage and Main Street and within the mills. It was a lot of man hours for not a lot of return, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was we directly spoke to the business owners and whoever was manning them at that moment. But yeah, it seemed to limited success. So I don't know.
Almost makes me think we need to get some sort of incentive for them to want to be involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
One thing is that they've been exposed to the information about technical and financial assistance that does exist right now. Are people aware? Maybe we could organize a presentation from somewhere or send them resources that are target business and commerce. Or like I just found out about the PACE program in Massachusetts, which is the property assessed clean energy.
Right.
I don't know much about it, how successful it is, but just, direct them to information about that. And whatever they can use with Mass Save or the solar incentives. I mean, at some point, maybe it's worth putting a workshop together, but maybe we can find somebody who's doing that elsewhere in the state and, give them some coffee and donuts and get them to come out here and do it for a meeting of businesses. I could see why they, being interested in fixing their own situations and improving their own energy economics and doing stuff for themselves is one thing. They might be interested, asking them to be involved in a climate action plan development and campaigning, which we were kind of, or input. That might be it's a different kind of a question, and they may have an interest in the one but not the other.
I was disappointed that we didn't get more feedback though, because some of the things that this plan has is going to impact those businesses, and I don't think they really understand that, but it's just too bad, but.
It'll be the same thing when aggregation gets rolled out too, because they're gonna get pulled into that unless they've already, opted into another provider, which many of the large energy users may have already.
The only other thing I can think of is, there was one year when we did some Earth Day events, and we got some businesses to participate with us because it was sort of an advertising thing. And maybe that's the other thing we need to take into consideration is, they're businesses. So how can we make it more appealing to them because it'll be advertising for them or some other way that it would make sense for them to participate in terms of what business they have. I don't know.
Okay, well, there's gonna be a couple places to come back to this, I think, in the various other agenda items. But, something to keep in mind is that EDIC is a resource that we can use, we can try to partner with. We want to keep that conversation going because, if they're interested in something, we want to be on the same page with them and sort of working in the same direction if we can support them. It's great, whether it's around like a municipal, code or something, some sort of like the vacant storefront thing, right? Like some sort of initiative that undertaking, or whether it's even like some larger, incentive program or policy related thing that we could take advantage of, or roll into something that we're doing. And
Can I throw out two quick thoughts?
Sure.
Paul St. Pierre, formerly of EDIC, is now the Western Mass rep for economic development. Maybe he'd be a good resource for us or share some ideas. Second thing is,
What is his title again? He's in the Massachusetts rep. Say it again.
Western Mass rep for economic development. But what is that organization? What rep to what?
State.
Rep to what?
It's the state.
So it's a state appointed position?
Yeah.
I see. I've never heard of it. That's That's interesting.
And then the other thing is, in terms of incentives, maybe this is goofy, but like something to put in their store windows that says that they're participating in climate-related initiatives in Easthampton.
Right.
That's a good idea.
I think that is a good idea.
I think one of the ideas that this kind of, maybe I forget if this came up at the edict meeting or in the climate action plan meeting, but somebody did have the idea of like, report cards for businesses too, like energy report
Yeah, that was in
cards.
the climate.
Yeah, so that could be an interesting thought to.
That could be kind of negative though.
Well, yes.
Is that really-
I did see it.
Is that really what we want to start with?
Well, I mean, but I did see it in New York City actually, where like a lot of big buildings have they now have letter grades based on their energy use, because New York has all these programs, they're trying to get all these buildings to take advantage of them, and if they're not, like that's part of the incentive is to do that. So, and then, maybe people wanna, and then when it's like housing, people wanna live in a more efficient building, they can use that grade to help inform like where they might go.
And you could just post the good grades.
You could, it's true.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be negative.
Yeah, well, on that front, let's jump into the thing with the electrify or the heat pump pilot program as I have it on here. And Mass CEC, since I think they've joined us again.
Yeah.
And I see turning on now, hello,
Hey, nice to meet you all.
how are you?
I'm Carmia. Last time you spoke with my manager, Meg, but I'll be kind of the same.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you just spell your name for me so I can put it into my minutes?
CAR, like a car, and then Mia, MIYA.
And your last name?
Gail, GALE.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we got, Meg talked extensively last time about sort of the progress and like where Mass CEC kind of comes into play here now with this funding and the execution of, a program around that. So I think we got a pretty good lay of the land with that. And now Cassie did just before this tell us that there is a draft that she's printed a few copies of. We haven't had a chance to look at that yet. So I don't know if you want to take us through any sort of recent updates or progress, or if you had some things you wanted to bring to us directly.
Yeah, I guess I didn't have anything specific, just in that there haven't been too many changes from what Meg talked about last time. But I can do kind of a brief overview of kind of the draft request for proposals and what we have kind of in mind now for the consultant to do.
Okay.
So I printed out 3 there, but also I don't know if Carmia, you have it pulled up. Otherwise I can share my screen and pull it up, whatever you think is better.
Well, I can share my screen if that works, and that way I can kind of scroll through as I talk about it.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Do you have one too?
I do.
Yeah, sorry, I only printed 3.
No, that's okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
Okay, let me know if you guys can see this. I'm not as familiar with Google.
Yeah, we can see it.
Do you need me to pull the TV closer or like, because I still do that?
That's-
Oh, you got
if
it
we
there.
can follow
Okay.
along here, that's okay, yeah. So yeah, go for it. I mean,
So
My first question is what does that mean? $150,000 is reserved for participant incentives.
so the total amount that we have is 500,000.
Yes.
So we're thinking that between consultant tasks and participant incentives, that we want to reserve at a minimum that amount. So we're leaving it kind of up in the air. If the consultant doesn't cost as much, for there to be more participant incentives. And we're kind of hoping that will be the case, but we're aiming for kind of at a minimum to have that amount reserved.
And would it be correct to
I
say that
understand.
incentives are just straight up money that we would give to people who participate in the program, right? So if a household is like, I want to get one, then that they would get some portion of that 150,000 to help them pay for it, if that makes sense. Then the rest of the program funds are going towards making the program happen with that concierge service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Extra money would be paid for, people's time or the company's efforts and costs.
And that might change depending on how things shake out, but it has to be at least 150. That's okay. Thank you. I
We'll see what we're requiring, but in theory, if the consultant is less expensive per task costs, then more money would go into participant incentives. So this is kind of our general summary of the tasks. So we want the consultant to kind of manage the program. So Mass DEC will kind of generally oversee it, but we want the consultant to be able to be really involved kind of in every aspect. So they'll kind of be the main point person for participants. So they'll manage kind of the overall logistics of the campaign, including doing outreach and talking to like getting participants, but also keeping them engaged. And then kind of the next major part is what, I guess this is a slight change, but what we were calling coordinated delivery, we're now calling co-delivery. But that just means kind of coordinating and taking participants along with the visualization and electrification and heat pump kind of parts of their projects and kind of making sure those all come together. And then as part of that, we're asking them, so I think this wasn't originally spelled out in the first draft, but we do want them to do like an initial home energy assessment. They will go in person and actually see the site and see kind of what they're working with. And then the next step is if based on that site visit, they find that the participants will be a good fit for targeted air sealing, they'll go in and they'll do that as well. Part of a second visit, probably. And then we want them to do sort of along the logistics line, just some metrics and tracking and reporting and the final report. So kind of any questions about that so far?
Good. We were told that there were going to be quarterly reports as well as the final report.
Yeah, that's true. We have it called quarterly summary updates here, but same idea, and I can show you in more detail at the end what we're
Sorry, I'm not.
It's a lot to digest all at once. And my question was to say, and maybe too in the weeds already, but like if somebody, if they find out people who have already done like a mass save assessment, let's say, and have that information on hand, but maybe just haven't acted on it, would they still need to do that initial assessment, or could people show up in the program potentially and say, hey, I've already had this done, can we just get right into the the next phase of things?
Yeah, I guess that maybe is a bit in the weeds and we don't have that like 100% decided yet. But I think we could potentially leave that to the consultant if they've talked to the participant and had kind of a call beforehand. They find that there isn't a need for the assessment. We just don't want to waste the participant's time, but also having the consultant kind of be on site themselves, I think has its own advantages. So maybe it would just be a shorter visit.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's just taking it from like a cost standpoint, right? Where if you could avoid that cost, you know, and like if there, I don't know how many people that might apply to, if you had a group of people like that, right, where you could save that step and like you could maybe then get more people into the program.
Yeah.
From a limited budget standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. And there's also maybe some room to just not accept those people and only work with people where this is kind of their first touch point. So that's also, yeah, a possibility.
May I just say, I think that would be very unfortunate. I mean, if you have people who have had enough interest to have Mass Save come and do the consultation and maybe even some of the insulation and they just have not, they're the people that we're concerned about. They just seem to, they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like those would be really good participants because they're obviously interested.
That's a good point. I think it would make sense then to leave it up in the air. If they've already had the assessment, maybe they'll just have a shorter visit with the consultant, or maybe the consultant can just kind of talk out some details on the phone and then continue with the support with the more complicated questions.
Yeah, and I guess is one of the goals here for us to sort of review this draft and then provide any comments back to you all around this.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, beyond what we're doing right now in real time, but like, we have a chance to go through a little bit more. And I know you're going to take us through more of it now, so why don't we continue on? Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just quickly add, in your email that to me when you sent this along, they were saying they were hoping to get comments up until the 5th of January.
Okay.
So I will email this to all of you, and you can just email me your thoughts if you want me to share them that way. But obviously, yeah, it makes sense to go through it now here as well.
Have you sent us the electronic version?
No, sorry, I'll do it after this meeting.
Yeah, and I would say we're hoping that this is kind of like closer to a final version, but you know, if there's anything you guys want to flag or feel definitely should be acknowledged kind of at this point, we definitely want to know that.
Great.
Yeah, so I guess maybe a question to you all that we had, which we don't have to decide now, but just kind of want to get some feedback about, is if we want to have participants, whether they're switching from oil and from gas, or if you want it to focus a bit more on what those segments.
Try to focus a bit more on what, on which?
On like, should the program only be for people switching from oil? Should it be only for people switching from gas? Should both be allowed?
Well, you'd be knocking out a whole good portion of the Easthampton population if you prohibited gas customers from being eligible.
What would be the reason not to allow both groups?
Just if there was one you wanted to target more, we definitely can include both. I think it was just kind of a question that we wanted to confirm.
Is the impact of gas as bad as the impact of oil?
No.
Because that could be another reason. I mean,
Yeah, but let's keep in mind this settlement is from a gas
Explosion.
issue, right?
That's true.
That's where this money is coming from. And so, you know, I think from my standpoint, we want case studies or we want examples of people, like, no matter where they are, right? If their current process, like if they're using gas, if they're using oil, if they've got, you know, propane or something like that, like we'd love to, you know, have examples of all those people that making this transition. I think, you know, my goal and my thoughts for this is like, you know, this is obviously going to be a somewhat limited program, but I'm hoping it can then blossom. You know, maybe we can find some other ways to carry it on or to, like, you know, have a second phase of it or something like that down the road one way or another.
I agree.
So, you know, I think from that standpoint, I think we should just be as inclusive as possible. And like, you know, we want to see how it works and how it goes with all these different things. There's things we'll learn in each of those situations, I would say.
There also are some residents in this community, I don't know how many, who use propane because of the moratorium. I mean, I think they should also have the opportunity to participate.
Yeah.
Personally, what do you guys think?
Yeah, to me, it's an electrified, right?
Yeah.
It's like electrify Northampton, Easthampton. So if somebody's willing to step up and wants to electrify, like, let's do it.
Right, that sounds good. So yeah, I'll keep going. This is kind of, yeah, just background about Mass CEC and our organization. And then this is a bit more background about what we're hoping to get out of the pilot. So yeah, like you mentioned, it's happening because of the settlement. And based on the conversations we had previously with Northampton and Easthampton, we want to have a focus on kind of moderate income residents and landlords, which has sort of historically not been a focus of a lot of state programming. So we'd like to do that within this pilot. And it was mentioned that that's a group within those communities that would be helpful to reach. And then this kind of reiterates what the consultant is doing. So they're going to be doing program management, et cetera. Here's sort of, again, our summary of how the budget is sort of expected to pan out. Again, kind of leaving it a bit open-ended so that if the consultant does cost less, there's more room for incentives. And then this part is just kind of our description of what we are looking for with a consultant. It's kind of a bit of boilerplate language that we use for other programs where we want someone who's knowledgeable in kind of these areas that are all relevant to this kind of program. And this is just kind of a placeholder timeline for now, so we're not setting these dates at this point, but we're hoping to kind of target them. So ideally, like Cassie mentioned, we're going to try to get our internal process started kind of early January, but that can take some time since like our legal team has to review everything carefully. So we were hoping maybe for like a mid-February potential launch, maybe March. And then we would pick a consultant. Yeah, these are all kind of placeholder dates, but hopefully kind of in the first quarter of the year, we could get the pilot kind of started.
And then there's no set length of the project, right? It's gonna be up to the whoever responds to figure out how they're gonna spend that money and over what period of time.
Right, yep. And then maybe I won't go through all this in detail, but basically in this section, the scope of work, we break down like all the different tasks. So this talks about what exactly we want from this consultant in terms of program management. So we want them to think of kind of an intake process and an outreach process, basically everything revolving around the participants and getting them going. And then we also want them to do income verification, which would be through the Mass Save process that already exists.
Would that be the section that might talk about how that the consultant needs to, like, I don't know, check in with the city or with the advisory committee or myself or something? I know we're gonna get the quarterly reports. Do you know if it says more about how they would keep in touch with us?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. So right now, I think the language we have is that they would attend quarterly check-ins with Mass CEC, but I think it's a good point to add, like I'll make a note, if you guys want, I can say Mass CEC and the communities, because I do think that would make sense for representatives to be involved in those meetings. So,
Yeah, it could be, all just be the same meeting, doesn't necessarily have to be separate meetings necessarily.
yeah, well, that makes sense.
John?
Yeah, I was wondering if Mass Save can be sort of represented in some way in the process, just because it seems like the benefits and payment for installations or whatever be funneled through, well, much of it through Mass Save anyway, and we want to have sort of track the experience of people who are in this project with Mass Save, and it might be good to have somebody on the inside of Mass Save who is at least staying in touch with what we're doing and who the applicants are. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Or do they have no role other than issuing checks when people, I mean, people have to go through an application process with Mass Save, don't they?
Yeah, and part of the sort of like coordinated delivery model is having our consultant work with Mass Save to make sure that the participant is getting like all the incentives available to them, and that also includes helping the participant like apply for those incentives.
So that sounds like kind of at the particular level of individual residents and when they make an application, rather than kind of in the overall conception and administration of things, right? I mean, it's a different it's a different sort of level of involvement. I don't know, maybe they don't have anything to contribute, but I thought maybe they might have something to contribute in sort of the design and implementation. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, like as an organization, Mass CEC, we've been working with Mass Save to kind of improve their processes. And I think one of our hopes for this pilot is to kind of like show the model that we're using here and show what they can do. So I think when the pilot's complete, or, you know, in the interim as it's ongoing, our plan is definitely to meet with Mass Save and show them kind of like what our results are.
Okay.
Okay, Cassie, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I might suggest that the RFP ask that whoever takes the contract designates a point of contact. And also that Easthampton, Northampton, and CEC also do the same.
I think that will definitely, I mean, that will definitely be mentioned in the contract, but I think it's worth going out here as well.
So, I don't know, maybe I don't know how much more there is to cover, but maybe if as, I don't know how to say your name, Carmia.
Carmia.
Saying there's not a significant amount of changes from the last time we had a discussion and we've had some input now, maybe we could just read these on our own and get thoughts and comments in, because we'll end up spending about a half hour.
Oh, yeah, no, it's, I didn't want to, yeah, I wanted to.
I have one question, which I asked last time, but I just have, any landlord, no matter who they are, can participate in this. There are no requirements in terms of it can be a multinational rental company or a local person who lives in one of the apartments in a 2-family. Is that correct?
That is the current writing of it, though that's open to changes if you think that that is an issue.
I mean, I feel like personally, I would prefer to have it be local landlords. I just feel like that would help us with what we're trying to do in terms of a pilot and coordinating with our community. I would prefer that they had some local connection. I mean, I don't really know who the landlords are of the larger units, like whether they are all out of state. I don't know anything about them, so I don't know whether that would be a mistake. We wouldn't have any of our multi-unit buildings participating. I'm just thinking about it out loud, and I don't know what I think.
More manageable scale.
Well, let me ask this
Well, I
question.
guess, yeah.
We talked last time, and it mentions it here, targeting, the moderate income residents, the 60 to 80% of mean state median, I should say. Would this program be limited just to that population?
Yeah, that's the idea at the moment.
Yeah, it would be limited, so, okay. So then, within that doesn't necessarily fully answer your question, because there could be larger corporations, but I think targeting that in the way the outreach and things are handled could be done to incentivize, like, again, smaller, homeowners or, small landlords or things.
But
like
the criteria for landlords is they just have to be a landlord. It has nothing to do
There's
with
also income, there's an income criteria in here.
not for the landlord. That's my question. Is there an income criteria for the landlords? My
Yeah,
understanding is there is not.
Currently there isn't, but I guess I'm thinking, so I'm just trying to pull up what exactly we say. I think we want buildings that are like 4 stories and under, so generally they're going to be like 4 units and under as well.
Right.
Do you know if those are owned usually by local landlords, or is that still a mix of developers? And
So they tend to be.
You want, I think.
Yeah.
I think the point is that you want the landlords to also be of a certain income bracket or less.
Well, I don't know. That's kind of what I'm trying to
I don't know how
understand.
easily you could do, I mean, if they're out of a corporation, so I guess you could have like some sort of revenue limit or something like that, but that seems like maybe a lot to ask
But
for a program of this size.
I don't know, a 4-unit house, triple decker or duplex with two
Right.
apartments on each side, I don't necessarily have a corporation.
But they might. They
They
could.
might, but,
Yeah,
so maybe the requirement is just that people file taxes as individuals. That the people who are applying for this program are filing taxes as individuals and not corporations.
I'm hesitant to just decide that without
Well, we're
really
raising ideas,
understanding
but
what
we'll
the,
consider, but.
the ramifications of it. I don't, because we want participation from people who own 4-unit
Right.
apartment buildings, and we actually don't know who they are. That's a problem that we have. We don't have that information.
Well, there's some stuff on the parcel listings.
I'm sorry, say that again.
There's some of that information available about who owns properties on the city's parcel map, and could be maybe possibly printed out, possibly by I actually just asked, that's just another issue, but
Oh, the assessor's
assessor
office.
to, find out about how old the age of our buildings is. I asked her. She said she's still working on it. So that's a thought, I guess. It's just, what is your thought about that? Carmia?
Yeah, I think I sort of want to put it more on you guys just because you know sort of the population a bit more. I think it would be fine to help out developers because they also need to learn how to do this kind of work and they also might need support. But at the same time, yeah, like I'm not as inclined to help them because I know they're just kind of like wealthy corporations. So I'm less excited to help them through those steps, but I don't think it would be like necessarily a bad thing. Of course, you know, with giving incentives to them as well, there's always kind of a bit of a downside of them potentially increasing their rents, but that's sort of true of all landlords. So I think I'm pretty neutral, I guess, overall to this. And I think we could maybe have some language where as part of outreach, maybe there's more spots for moderate income homeowners as opposed to landlords. But I think we all kind of want to learn what that landlord segment, what their needs are. So.
Right. Well, that's, I guess, where I'd be curious to hear what feedback Northampton has too, because their housing stock in their buildings and the situation's gonna be a little different than ours. Ours probably tends to be smaller, generally speaking, whether you with 1 to 4 family, you know, or buildings are concerned, whereas theirs, they may have more, you know, larger corporations involved in like multiple, yeah. You get the idea.
Well, my guess is when you're talking about the bigger apartment complexes in the city, that what this program has for a budget is a drop in the bucket that's not gonna move the needle much for the big
Right.
apartment buildings.
Well, that's why it's
because
for-
it's only 4 units.
Yeah, it's why it's just for 1 to 4 units
So-
max.
Okay, well, one thing we might try to do is see if there's some data out there, before this is finally decided about what the distribution, and I think some of this is here, but the distribution within the city of single-family owner-occupied homes, 2-unit owner-occupied homes, where the landlord lives in the unit, in the building as well, which is an interesting situation, and that's fairly common.
Right.
And then thirdly, ones that are, 2 to 4 unit buildings that the owner does not live in the building, but it's still not necessarily a corporation. I mean, if we had an idea of the distribution, then we could try to select proportionally in those categories to the extent possible, if we have enough applicants.
Yeah, and you'd also have to triangulate against income too, like the occupants income, which is gonna be harder.
I will check the climate action plan data to see if it had something like that. I
Yeah,
can't
there was
remember.
definitely a breakdown I've seen
Yeah.
recently of like owner occupied versus renters versus like,
Yeah.
that exists for sure.
And I don't know if maybe this helps put it in perspective, but Carmia, you were thinking that this, or the group is kind of thinking that this would probably reach, what, like 50 households in Easthampton? So, or, you know, applicants or participants. So it might not even be worth getting too harsh about it, because there's only so many people who are gonna be able to be served by this.
And there is the argument that we want landlords to participate, so even if they maybe don't need the money as much, it's not that much money in truth, and if we're getting them to participate, that's huge.
The goal is to improve the building.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, as a pilot sort of thing, you know, it could probably better to be more expansive at the start and like see what sort of interest it generates versus being too limiting right off the bat. I mean, if it comes in and like somehow, you know, a couple large corporations somehow suck up like all the incentives and like very few individual homeowners get it, that wouldn't be ideal, but that seems unlikely. Generally.
who's gonna make the decision ultimately about who gets to participate?
I'm gonna see the program manager, whoever's chosen,
Okay, right.
they would be the one administering the program.
Will there be any consultation with that person from you guys? Will you weigh in at all?
Yeah, we'll make sure everything looks okay. like, again, we're going to kind of oversee everything, but they're going to work on the details, but they're going to run everything by us.
Okay, Carmine, is there anything else that you want to highlight or that we should pay some attention to right now before maybe doing some offline review and submitting feedback?
No, I think that's maybe all for now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like there's lots of good, interesting things in here. You know, I think generally speaking, it's laid out pretty well, and I think it's a good foundation for what's going to move forward. Maybe add just a few of these questions on eligibility for program participants and some of these other things. But yeah, if not, then we'll do some of our own individual review, and we can pass our feedback through Cassie. Once she'll share it with us, and we can share that back, and you all can incorporate that or come back to us with any questions that maybe arise as a result of that. And again, curious to hear what Northampton has to say too, or what their feedback on any changes that they would like to see. So if you're at liberty, if you all are at liberty to share that with us or with Cassie, who can then share with us, that would be great.
I just have one other question. Are there any questions that you want us to look at? There are a couple of places like this. I don't have an opinion about this issue of proposing contractors. I don't know anything about whether it would be good or bad to have them have their own group or not. It's on page.
Right. Section to task 3. Code delivery.
So I guess like,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's on the second part of it.
Second is just before to start task 4. I don't know. I don't have an opinion about that.
maybe just like as you guys review it, start with those comments and see if you do have specific answers. And then if you don't for any of that, you can just send me your general thoughts and other questions that weren't highlighted by Carmen or
Right.
Megan.
I just was wondering whether there was anything that you particularly wanted us to look at.
I don't know. I guess since this is sort of more close to finalized than when you guys talked with Meg last time, I think we don't have quite as many like open questions. I think we just sort of want to see, does this look okay to you guys? Is there anything that you kind of want to flag of like, I'm not sure that that's going to work well.
Okay.
And then kind of, again, like keeping in mind that it is a pilot and we've gone back and forth a lot of like, oh, we could do a ton of incentives, but then no support, or like only support and no incentives. And I think, you can do that forever, just go back and forth because we want to do everything.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of what we want to go with, but.
Yeah. No, I think it's probably a good mix and comes from, the right amount of discussion about it already. And like, I think expediency is great in the end, right? You want to get this up and running and get it, start getting the money where it should go.
And we really appreciate your letting us participate in the process.
For sure.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate your feedback. It's been really helpful.
Great. Okay. Well, we will review and get back to you with anything else that comes from this, and then we'll look forward to.
How quickly do we need to issue?
Well, it's like by January 5th, I think.
It's
It's okay, I'll tell the email.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cassie will prompt us, if anyone has got some time over the holidays, take a quick look and see
We
what
all have
thoughts.
some time over.
We all have so much time, nothing but time. And yeah, so we'll get that back by early January, and then look forward to the final thing, and then an active program sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're here. Is there a name for this thing?
Right there, electrify Easthampton, Northampton, or Northampton, Easthampton.
I feel electrified.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been calling it heat pump pilot program, but
Yep.
electrify, more active, it's more.
Yeah.
Yeah, jolting is,
Whoa.
excellent. Okay, well, Carmina, you're welcome to stay on, but also you probably have other things to do as well. So appreciate you spending some time with us and taking us through this and the progress so far. Thanks, Carmina.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to see, something moving towards, something that's gonna be active in 2024, one way or the other, and actually
And
making
this is,
some progress.
this is actually, to me, a much better program than I had in my mind of what it was gonna be. I think it's really wonderful. This is gonna be a great pilot. It's gonna be so useful for us.
Yes, we're gonna
We'll
learn a
get
lot.
so much information from this.
Yeah, I think that's credit to whoever got Mass CDC involved. I don't know who made that decision to bring them in.
This has been DOER, because they
Yeah.
kind of were like holding it all and then with them and then reached out to us, so.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been a long
Mass
time
CDC
coming.
is a good group. And
Is
they
that
obviously
DOER, is that what you said?
Yeah, DOER.
Okay, so let's keep things moving here. I will just, touch real quick on municipal aggregation. There's not a ton to update there, although there was a quick technical session, talking about DPU, because DPU is still reviewing, how they're handling aggregation. So I was on a meeting with Good Energy and a bunch of other towns and cities from across the Commonwealth, participated to talk about prepping for a meeting with DPU that's happening on the 22nd.
In the public utility.
Yeah, it's happening in there, only in person in their offices, like in Boston, unfortunately. So there's not a remote option for that. So Good
It's on
Energy
the
will be there,
20th, is
the
that right?
22nd, this Friday, yeah.
Mm.
So there's a couple, one of the interesting things was hearing all these other cities, and like many of them have had aggregation plans submitted to DPU and how long they've been waiting.
Like 2
I think
years.
3 years was the longest I heard. So there's at least one that's been sitting at DPU for 3 years with like no action.
Outrageous.
Totally outrageous, which is what DPU is now admittedly trying to fix and trying to put in place some new parameters for this, and the feedback, the push that Good Energy and the other municipalities are giving it is good. It's moving them in the right direction. And then hopefully it's gonna result in getting this unstuck generally. And that'll be good for us, because by the time we get to them, hopefully there'll be a much better process and all that. So I'm not able to go to Boston on Friday, unfortunately. There is another meeting tomorrow for the people that are gonna be there to talk about how they're approaching this and how they wanna, what they wanna.
Can you send me that information? I actually might be in Boston anyway on Friday, so
Oh,
maybe
okay.
I could go. Will you, I probably somewhere in my emails I have information about the meeting
I don't know
tomorrow.
if you do, actually. I think I'm the only one getting it. I think,
Okay.
From Good Energy.
So if I'm gonna go on Friday, I might as well go to tomorrow.
Yeah, you'd wanna be there tomorrow, so you'd have an idea of what's happening. I'll send you
Thank you.
the info about that. Okay, oops. All right. The next part of that is then, we'll be coming up on our, well, the next phase is gonna be the public comment period, to get a draft plan in place and then open up public comment period. So the draft plan is still waiting to get with the mayor to discuss how we're gonna handle that, whether she just wants to approve a draft plan, especially now that the part that the solicitor needs to weigh in on has basically been removed. Or if she wants the city council to review and approve the draft plan before we open the public comment period. So it's gonna be one of those. She has the authority, if she wants to just say, yeah, we're good, put it out there and let's get the public comment period going. I kinda wanna wait till after this DPU technical session before that, and we do too much of that, just in case, anything significant changes. So we'd be looking at probably hopefully early part of next year to open that. I think it's a 1-month comment period. The draft plan will be published. We probably do a quick, press release around it, get word out in various ways, to let people know, and then receive those public comments, and then come back to try to put the final plan in place that then would go to DOER and then DPU.
Are there any earlier drafts or information that could look over on that?
I will send you some stuff as well, yes, because I have, an updated draft plan. I'll share it with everybody here, actually, because, yes.
Cool.
And I haven't even really, it's longer even than this other document. We were just looking at it like, a little more involved even, but I'll happily share that.
So Jamie, has the mayor signed is the contract signed?
The contract with Good Energy is signed.
Okay.
What was not, yes. So what happened is they submitted to us a draft plan.
Yes.
In that draft plan originally, there was also a draft of what would be an agreement, say with an energy supplier. Because they usually want to have, and then the city solicitor got that to review and had some issues with the potential energy supplier contract, even though we're not actually talking to an energy supplier.
I see, okay.
So, but now DPU has dropped the requirement to include that with our draft plan. Our draft plan can just be our plan. It doesn't have to include a contract with an energy supplier or, a
Got it.
sample or
Got
a
it.
draft.
Got it.
So the part of this, the solicitor and whoever might have needed to go back and forth about has been eliminated, which means that it's just the draft plan itself, which is what I will share with everybody, which we then put out there for public comment.
Got it.
Approving, pending mayoral/city council approval of the draft plan itself.
But obviously they should still be working on that because at some point we are going to have a contract with the supplier and we want.
Well, eventually we'll
lawyer
need to, but then
be
with the lawyer, we'll be better off negotiating that directly with an actual supplier rather than
Gotcha.
like a
Okay.
phantom.
That makes sense.
You know,
Yes.
Let the solicitor spend their billable hours
Yeah,
on an
that makes so
actual
much
contract and not something else. So then I put a thing in here just a quick rate comparison, because I had got something in the mail and I actually forgot to bring that with me, because I got something from a third-party supplier myself trying to get me to switch and the clean energy, and I forget what the cost was. And then meanwhile, Eversource's winter rate, goes into effect January 1, and it's actually only an increase of like 1 cent per kilowatt hour. But I just wanted to sort of have that in mind. I think it's going from like 14.8 cents to 15.8 cents. And then this other clean energy one was, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I just wanted to sort of start getting our heads around what those rates are, because when we go out to an energy supplier, they're gonna come back to us with, several price points, like here's what we would do for your base rate, here's what we do for a drop down of renewables, and here what we do for like an opt up of renewables, and like start thinking about what those rates look like for people and like what we want our own competitive offering, or again, potentially money saving offering to look like. Right?
Do you think, I'm also thinking though that a supplier sending information to an individual homeowner may not give as good a deal as they would give to the city.
Oh, of course, but we want to compare what we're going to be able to offer people to what they'd be able to get
Oh, I see
on
what
the
you're
open
saying.
market.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we want to just use that as a barometer to say, okay, when we put our plan, because we're going to do this, and we're going to opt all these people into this program. Right, and they would think a
Gotcha.
sensible goal of like saving the money, hopefully, and like locking that in long term. So, yeah, if you come across things where you're seeing electrical rates, wherever.
I saved them all.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that'll be good reference to have. And of course, they vary from time to time, and Eversource is allowed to change theirs like twice a year. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in people's mind. Because that'll become more relevant later on.
Is it public information about what places that already have aggregation plans in place, what they are charging consumers?
Yeah, I bet you
Is
can
that
go onto
available?
any of their websites and see it.
That would be interesting too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. So that's the aggregation update. Let's talk about the actually, one thing on aggregation is rolls back to the climate action plan. There was somebody at the meeting on the 7th who was asking me about aggregation or the whole thing, and I didn't get his information to like reach out to him. So I don't know, did we collect all the information or all the participants? Is there a way we could get that list of people?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Information.
Yes, so I took pictures of all the sign-in sheets, and what I was planning to do is I have all the emails that we got from the survey that people gave, and they said they wanted to stay in contact through that. I've added all the emails that we got from the sign-in sheets from the last event, and then I'm gonna add in these ones from those recent events. So as long as they signed in, I should have it.
Okay.
If it's relatively legible. And what we can do is maybe we could probably use that list of emails for the public outreach for this event. Try to capture all these same people. It seems like they would be interested, and it wouldn't be like a crazy thing to use that for this.
Right.
So
Sorry, for which event are you talking
for
about?
all the emails that we have gathered thus far for the climate action plan outreach,
Right.
I would think it'd be super reasonable to use that for the municipal aggregation outreach if we do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we should
Got it.
have that person's email and can
Yeah.
reach out to them. But if you remember their first name once you see it, I can show you the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah.
who it was. I know
Okay.
his name. I just wasn't
Okay.
able to find him on social media and like whatever. So I was like,
I can do that.
so I'm curious what everyone else's experience with that too. I thought,
We're talking about the,
workshop, yeah, so I thought it was good, I liked the breakouts with the different tables, I thought were interesting. Obviously, it's a short period of time to try to capture a lot of people's thoughts and get off on a couple of tangents, and all of a sudden, we kind of missed a few, we didn't get to everything even in the time we had, because there's only so much time. And so many ideas. Very good energy around it, I thought, for sure, yeah, so, I took a couple things away from it, but thinking about it, and again, I put sort of the next steps and then what our priorities are, right? So if anyone had anything that stood out to them, from your discussions at that meeting, things that might be relevant to us as a committee or the city generally.
Can we get hold of the summary that Weston and Sampson put together about it?
Absolutely. So
That would be very
basically,
useful.
they showed me this at we had our little check-in meeting last Thursday, and basically they showed me that they have a spreadsheet where they took the sheets that we were writing on, right, and have synthesized that into a spreadsheet. So it's way more legible. It will make more sense. And I checked to make sure they can read my handwriting, so we should be good. But yeah, so they're gonna give us all that, and that really was the last piece they need to make the draft too of what the actions are. So there's more to come from Weston and Sampson, certainly in a more digestible format.
I did have one takeaway from that. Is that it was very easy for us to, at least on our breakout, go off on tangents. And I would imagine that's probably the same on you get all these different personalities. You get excited.
Right.
And they start going off on something. So it's, but then there's also,
Yeah.
Find and everyone's got their one particular issue that they really care about.
Probably we should have set up some parameters, there should have been, I don't know, in schools, they do this with kids, one person's the leader, one person's the note taker, and, and one person's the timer, and, that probably would have been, because we didn't have that much time, but the next time, we can set it up a little more, with a little more structure.
It also, sorry for interrupting, it also helps to have a coordinate, what you are in this meeting and what Gwen is in the EDSE meeting. Someone to keep everyone on track.
Cassie's, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I've got two things. I think it would be good to do multi-voting the next time we do a brainstorming.
What do you mean?
What's multi-voting?
What is that? Yeah.
It's
Post-it
notes on a board kind of thing.
Oh, wait. Okay. Sorry. I was getting messages from Google. Multi-voting is when you give people a way to do it that's easy. Is give them 3 stickers, circle stickers, and then you just spend them. You can put all 3 of them on one thing. You can spread them out.
So you talk about different ideas and things.
Yeah, so that you can kind of conclude, this is the group consensus, that this is the most important thing to do. Maybe on another time or something, or maybe with the same ideas. And then I would like to, we had a bunch of ordinance stuff come up, and I suspect other groups did as well. I don't know if it would be useful to hear from the ordinance committee. I think this one's really worth it to put an ordinance around. How do we do that? What's the process?
Yeah, the implementation piece of this is going to be, I think, interesting, and that's one of the things that was hard to prioritize maybe in the group discussions, is sort of what's implemented. Everyone's pie in the sky is what you want, right? We want everyone thinking expansively, but then at the same time, it's when we translate this back into the real world that we're living in here, what is the process for doing, whatever around transportation, right? Or around energy, or around, open space or something like that. It's sort of and then or hazard mitigation, right? There's all sorts of questions about, how you do that, how quickly can you do that, and what is the process, and where does it start, right? So that's what I wanted us to kind of think about here is what are the things of this that maybe start with us, right? What are the things that we can start doing now? And obviously we have several things that we're already doing that feed into this, right? And maybe that's what we stick with that, right? Maybe we stay on this path that we're on with these various agenda items, but maybe there's some other stuff that we want to think of. So when I put our priorities on here, that's kind of what I mean is what do we see, what's the best use of our time, or volunteer time, to try to, advance these agendas, advance the climate action plan, promote it and really, and try to help us get there.
One thing that I can add to that is that in theory, the actions are going to, when they're listed in the plan, we'll have identified who would be the first or what department would be a logical place to kind of champion it, or at least like be a key factor in it. So yeah, if you guys can identify some actions that you think you want to take on yourselves or prioritize, I know some of them, it might be like a combo of, the EAC kind of is driving for it, but it's going to be a lot of collaboration with the school department for the buses or things like that. So hopefully get like nuance can be revealed in the plan. But I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but it always seemed like a possible way that the plan would be like overseen and just the group keeping up with it and being like, this still exists, we still be pursuing it, would be EAC, and be like, you guys have your tasks that you're directly working on, but you could also be like, are we reaching these goals? Is there, okay, now we've done that one, place it with something else, or.
Just need to change the C from committee to czars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know, yeah, it's hard, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
One of the things that-
Yeah.
One of the things that came up, that also I think we should think about is that, we have a hazard mitigation plan in place, which I have never read. I don't know about any of the rest of us, but they really should be coordinated.
Yeah, well, that's what they're talking about, is like doing
Yeah.
that, like they're trying to, that's the next thing
Yeah.
they're doing, right? It's like a different phase, but hopefully informed by this. Maybe you know that a little bit more.
Can you say that again? I just text, so, sorry.
You're talking about the hazard mitigation, and like, 'cause
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah.
mentioned that at the beginning, like that there was also gonna be something that they're working on,
Yeah.
like the update of the Easthampton hazard mitigation plan.
But they're still being looked at as two separate
Absolutely.
things. And I'm just saying that, although I understand that, first of all, a lot of cities and towns don't have them as separate plans. They have them integrated. But whether or not that we have two plans or we have one plan that includes both, they have to be integrated in terms of how it's approached.
Yeah.
And that was something that came up in our group that I thought was like, yeah, we do need to be thinking about that.
Definitely, and I think that makes sense, and I feel like that's the way Weston Sampson's thinking about it too. So it will be, that one's, it's like just getting started with the hazard mitigation plan, and there's supposed to be like a whole committee formed
Mhm.
just for kind of overseeing that being created. But Wes, since it is the same consultant, it's kind of perfect that it's the same.
Right.
And that they can help kind of integrate the two. And that from their presentation, it seemed like that's what they were indicating. And in my discussions with them, hopefully I can stay involved in the hazard mitigation plan development. Once this is done, then I would kind of shift focus and help them over there and be like, don't forget about this.
So it kind of makes me think that someone from our committee, other than you, should be on
Their
the hazard
committee.
mitigation committee.
That would be awesome if someone can do it. I think that would be really awesome.
I don't think anybody from that, did they get any names at all?
I'm not sure.
Did
There
they?
were at least 3 or 4 by the
I
end.
might be interested in doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But, I didn't even know there was this other contract.
It's kind of like a recent thing. So
Really?
yep. Are you only learned about
No,
it
part
myself
of what I
recently?
understood, and I don't see it in the scope much or the presentations, but I thought part of this $150,000 contract was them looking at where we were in relation to our current hazard mitigation plans and strategy.
Yeah,
They were
so,
gonna review,
yep,
right?
and that was
So
gonna
is that
be,
now getting, what's the word, subsumed into this other contract?
yeah, so just note, Cassie just put in the chat, she's still here, she can hear us, she's
Okay,
doing
okay.
something. But, yeah, but for that piece, there is, part of it was just to try to capture the resiliency piece, because we do have a green infrastructure master plan, which is kind of like the physical piece of resiliency and some hazard mitigation, kind of. They were gonna look at all of our existing plans, our master plan, green hazard mitigation plan, green infrastructure master plan, and kind of like just have a piece in the kind of more in the narrative being like, this is where we're at in that regard. But now it's nice because they're gonna do a more concerted look at the hazard mitigation plan. So it's kind of both,
Yeah.
John. I feel like that's like a weird answer I'm giving you, but it's kind of both, is how I'm reading it at
Yeah.
least. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there's a green infrastructure plan?
Master plan, there is, yes.
And when was that written? Do you have any idea? Is it like,
I
has it
wanna
been
say-
around for a long
I
time?
wanna say 2018. It's not like super old. So it's pretty new, but they're actually, if you want after me, I can show you what's in there. But basically that targets like specific infrastructure projects that the city should go for. And we've been using a lot of the, they're called municipal vulnerability preparedness action grants.
Okay.
We've been pursuing those to actually fund making those happen. One example is the Cherry Street
I was
project.
gonna say, is that
Yeah.
Cherry Street,
It
yeah.
was like $1 million
I guess I don't
project.
quite get the difference between a green infrastructure master plan and a mitigation plan. It seems like mitigation would include infrastructure.
Just quick and dirty, as I understand it, is that the hazard mitigation plan kind of focuses on emergency response in a lot of ways. So like infrastructure is like,
Okay.
these are the ones we need to improve if we're gonna try to avoid these problems, but hazard mitigation is like, what's the plan for when it does go down?
One's
And like,
prevention and one's, so you've got preventative medicine and then you have the doctors that do surgery.
Right,
Essentially.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Proactive, the other's reactive.
exactly, I'm pretty sure. And there might be more nuance than that, but that's my understanding.
And also keep in mind, and I'm sure, the mayor or Jeff, would tell you this, like, a lot of times you have to do these things as a city in order to make yourself eligible for funding at the
Exactly.
federal or state level, right? So if you don't have a hazard mitigation plan, then you can't apply for FEMA funds or whatever.
Yes.
If you don't have, a green infrastructure plan, then you can't go to HUD or whoever else and
MVP
say, hey,
grants.
we want money to do this stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Got it.
that's, and a climate
It's
action plan, I
it's
imagine is something else
proactive.
that's would then potentially opens up funding opportunities for us, right, by
Exactly.
having done this, yeah.
Yes, and hopefully, they really all should work together, in my opinion, at least.
Well,
So next steps from Weston and Sampson's standpoint
Yeah.
for this, now that we've done the second workshop.
So basically, we don't have planned another workshop. That was really the main pieces that we needed to get in terms of direct public input have been gotten. But there is the next step, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this of how you wanted to pursue kind of draft review. So in theory, we're gonna get a draft from Weston and Sampson. The original timeline was to have the plan accepted by city council in February, but we certainly have enough money in the budget and in the grant requirements to push it out farther. If we want to get more time to do draft review, we can do that. And that's kind of how Jeff was feeling might be a good idea. I feel the same way. I think, we want to review it forever, but going up by a month or two might be good, particularly because in March, the state is going to be issuing its latest version, or was it the state or the federal government? I think it was the EPA climate action, directives and things that were to come out. And so if we wanted to kind of make sure we saw that before if in case there's anything we want to add to our final version. But it gives us more time. So in bare minimum, the process would be that they would give us a draft, you guys would look at it, and then we would send it to city council for review and approval. But we could do so much more than that. We could send it post it on the city website that we have for the project,
we should
and
do
then
that.
email out to all the people that I have on my email list at least.
Mhm.
I don't know that I would do a mailer or anything like that,
Right.
or we could post
Right.
flyers out again.
Uh,
Yeah.
And if you're
And maybe-
pushing off the.
To review the
date-
draft, you mean? Yeah.
Pushing off the date of having a final plan also makes it a little more realistic because we really haven't seen too much of the meat of what this plan is gonna be yet. We
Right.
talked
Right.
about all different elements, we haven't seen how it's going together,
Yeah.
what it says. It'll give us a chance to comment and make criticisms and proposals and whatever, and give them a chance to react to that and actually integrate some of it. Whereas this other timeline, I'm having trouble imagining as it stands now, us, them getting it out, getting all the people to read it and go through it, comment and get back, and then to revise, integrate things. It's a short timetable
I agree.
everywhere.
I don't know whether other people feel this way, but I feel like the way we function, which is to have a meeting a month, is not appropriate for trying to review this really important plan. We really need time to sit around and really go over it together, I think. I don't know if are you even allowed to do that with open meeting laws?
We can have a meeting, we can have a public meeting,
Just
there's nothing,
review it.
there's no protocol that says we can only have one meeting a month. We could be.
Kind of have like a special workshop.
Yeah, we can.
That's what I'm thinking, more of a real, or maybe, I don't know, maybe divide ourselves up and we each look at a certain section of it, I don't know, but I just, like we talked, we supposedly were gonna go over all of these other plans and then, share our insight, and, it's hard to do that when you never really are talking to each other, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know, it's easy for me to say this because I have a lot of free time because I'm retired, but I mean, I would really like to have several hours to do this.
Okay.
Or a day, you know, like a Saturday or something. I know that's impossible for you. I know. But I'm just saying, you know, that would be, or else maybe we should divide ourselves, now that we have so many members, like have a committee of people who have the extra time to do that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Can
I'm
we
just trying
create
this
a
out.
subcommittee? I don't know what the protocols are for that. But here's what I would say, two members, now that we're at 5, 2 members could get together and discuss stuff, and it doesn't have to be an official thing, it doesn't have to be a public meeting, because that's not a quorum. If we start to get to a point where we have 3 people discussing stuff, and you know, discussing something that's a contract with the city, essentially,
Yeah.
then we would need to.
And
if
does
that would be a
Cassie
public-
count in that?
Cassie does not.
So she could come to the, and meet with the other 2 and it would still be okay.
And the results of what those 2 people plus Cassie discuss, that can be viable to come back to.
That can become,
Oh,
that
yeah.
probably should come back and then be probably part of the public meeting.
Mhm.
That would happen, so.
Well, so I guess the question would be, so one, just stepping back a little bit, it sounds like everyone's okay with us pushing out the completion
Yeah.
timeline. Is there a maximum amount of time you wanna go out for? The only deadline really that we're beholden to is for the community compact grant that we used to pay for a portion of it.
Mhm.
They've said that the project needs to be done within 2 years, so we're well within that.
Well within that,
Yeah, well within that. But in theory, I was thinking like April, shoot for April now instead.
My only concern is
For the
just,
final plan to
is
be
the
published.
finances in terms of Weston and Sampson, like, did they have like, we're
Time
paying
Yes.
them?
Yes.
constraints.
So they signed a contract with us. We have $150,000 to go towards this project.
Yeah,
They can go until that runs out. And they said it's fine to push it out to, they were thinking like, yeah, after March, once the EPA, that sounded like a fine timeline to them. They're like, we have the budget to do it. It's okay.
I
So,
think
yeah.
that sounds like,
Are they on budget?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of how they laid out so much in these different areas, yeah.
As far as I can tell, yes. Especially their willingness to push it out seems to be a good indicator that they are, in my opinion. So
I think I would like to have that time.
Okay.
I think it would be
Yeah.
beneficial,
So-
because this is a big deal, this
No.
plan.
that sounds good. And then the other piece that I wanted to make sure was, so yeah, maybe a special meeting. If we have the special meeting, or some kind of extra meeting, do we want that to be a thing that we advertise out to the public? Like, come to this special meeting. I mean, all these meetings obviously are open to the public, but
The
I could,
review of the
I
plan.
think,
Yeah.
I think in terms of what Colin was saying, you don't want to necessarily, I shouldn't be saying this on camera, but average, I mean, the purpose, okay, this is how I should say
Yeah.
it. The purpose of the meeting is for us to bounce things off
Yes.
each other that we can't do in a limited period of time.
yes, that
And
makes
so if
sense.
we're saying we want public comment, we do want public comment, but not necessarily at this particular
I
junction.
see.
We're trying to.
One
Okay.
way to do that though is if we do have it as an official meeting, we could, you know,
Just post
it
it.
gets posted.
Right.
We could send an invite to the list, those who've been, you know, interested, who've participated. And we can have an extended public speak period time at the beginning. However, what we can do as committee, I can do as a chair, is cut that public speak time off and then leave it to the members of the committee to discuss. Other people can stay in the meeting and listen to what we're talking about, but we don't, I mean, public speak is not open-ended, it doesn't have to be like the entire, so we can invite some comment, have that comment inform our discussion, but our discussion can be mostly focused around our thoughts.
I would prefer, I mean, I like that idea, but I would prefer to have one meeting among us before that. And then have it, I mean, we're talking until April, and the public comment piece, that comes, when is that supposed to happen in all of this?
Whenever you guys want. I mean,
There doesn't have to be.
there doesn't have to be one at all.
It doesn't have to be
Okay,
any
so-
more public.
So what I think, because there are people actually asked to see it. Do you remember?
Yes,
There's at least-
absolutely.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
very interested in seeing it that last meeting. I mean, I would like to have us spend some time with it, just like, you know, talking about it. And then I think it would be great to have one where we really do invite people. You know, we're having this meeting, you know, if anybody wants to comment, we're inviting you to come specifically to comment on it.
So that makes sense to me. So maybe this as a preliminary idea. I'll get the draft and share it with you all digitally immediately. But then at the next meeting or at a separate meeting, we'll plan just normally, just to talk about it and go over it. Then we can figure out when we want to have another meeting and we advertise out to the public. But also I can just email to the public being like, here's the draft. here's a copy of it, here, where you can find it online. If you have comments, send them to me.
Yeah.
So we can do a combo of those things, yeah.
Yes. When do you anticipate the draft coming in, do you think?
I don't know. I don't have a good date for that yet. I think
Certainly
soon.
before our next meeting.
I would think so. Yeah, probably, because we're probably gonna meet in January, like 18th or?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, we've, the end of the year, we went to the third Monday, and it seems to be working for people.
Yeah.
Does the third Monday of the month generally still work for people into the new year? Cause we can just stick with this time.
So what is, I don't know.
That's the $1,000 question.
Yeah, I think, later in the month might be better.
This would
for
be
them.
January 15th, which actually may be, Martin Luther King Day, which means that the city offices are likely closed.
Yes.
So we could look at January 22nd as an option, as an alternative for the month of January.
That's better for me.
I think it works for me as well. I gotta look at mine. There might be a conservation commission meeting, but it would start at 6. So
Start
we
at
can
6,
meet
okay.
before then, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
so we would try to stick with the 3 PM time frame.
So like I said, I have my little mini check-in meetings with them every other Thursday. So I'll let you all know if they're like, that's not gonna work for them for a draft. Obviously, we can still have the EAC meeting, that's fine. But should we get a better idea of when the draft will be available?
So just, so I understand, so we're gonna get the draft, and then we'll review it on the 22nd. And then we will have some sort of breakout meeting to review it in a more nitty-gritty way. And then we'll have, I'm just thinking about this in terms of time, then we could have a February meeting among ourselves to review it again, and then have an open meeting in March.
Yeah.
Does that
Yes,
sound
or
right
we
to
could
you
add an extra
We
meeting.
got an extra
Or
meeting.
add
So
an
here's what I would, given the time frame though, they're gonna need to finalize, and I wouldn't wanna push it into March for us, because I think that's gonna run afoul of them getting it done, getting it to the city
Okay.
council, getting it approved.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend, let's say we can do the 22nd for our next meeting. The draft will be out there, it'll been sent to people, we can invite people even to that meeting,
I just,
to what, as the public speak, and we can incorporate any comments that have been received at that point.
Yeah.
And we don't have to put it out there as a special thing necessarily, but we could, again, invite people to submit written
Yes.
feedback, and if they wanna provide some sort of verbal feedback, they can do it at that meeting. We could add another meeting, say on February 5th, that is a public meeting, but we wouldn't necessarily, we put it out there through the normal channels, but not necessarily
And that
extra
can-
advertisement.
Yeah.
That could be the meeting where we really spend
It's
our
just about
time,
this.
be just about, to be a
Yeah.
climate action plan only agenda.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then back to our regular meeting on the 19th.
I'm sorry, you've lost me, I apologize, it's me, I know it's me. So,
January 22nd will be our next meeting.
yes,
We will have had the draft at that point, we'll have some of
Yes.
our own comments.
You should have it ahead of the meeting.
We should have it ahead
Can't
of,
sit there and review it.
no, we're not gonna review it in the meeting, we'll have reviewed it beforehand. We'll see what other public comments come in, either written to Cassie, or if anyone wants to come to public speak at our next regularly scheduled meeting, they can give us their feedback.
so you are going to send it to us and to the people who attended the workshop, is
If
that
it's okay
right?
with you guys, that's what I was.
Yeah, that's
planning
fine
to
with
do.
me.
Yeah, just send it to everybody, post it on the city website and all.
Yeah, and then again, we can invite them for our that meeting to come, and that specifically will be like sort of an extra invitation, like, come give us your feedback, and we'll build in some extra time for public speak at that meeting, and maybe shorten up some other parts of the agenda as needed. And then we can put an extra meeting on the calendar for ourselves, say February 5th, where I'm looking at that's 2 weeks later.
I feel like we should do it in the opposite order, that we have the public comment after
But
the meeting
But we
that
want-
when we review it for the first time. Like the second meeting would be when we invite,
Well, I think I wanna start like wide net and then narrow it.
Yeah,
Like, I wanna bring in all those public comments
Okay,
first and all
alright.
that, so that then we've got all that. And, then
I agree.
we're filtering all
Okay.
that through for
Except
Weston and Sampson.
As long as we understand the plan as a group sufficiently, so we can make sense of the public comments as they're coming in and answer questions for people. if
Well, we don't
need
have to, it's public comment, right? It's not up for us to solve everything right there.
Yeah.
That's again, that's just kind of keeping it open for ourselves too, right? Maybe we were hearing things for the first time, maybe we've had a chance to review it in detail, maybe we haven't all that much, or maybe a combination, right? And we wanna go through and talk about certain parts.
Don't we wanna have our meeting where we have a meeting where we're just focused on this
Mm-hmm.
and just amongst ourselves? I would think we would do that before we
That's what I
start
was
bringing
thinking.
The
everyone
thing
else
of it
in.
is
Yeah.
that you can't have a meeting where you're all there, where it's just you guys, unless it's like executive session. It will be open to the public either way, if a quorum is meeting,
Yeah, but the two things,
advertised.
the two things is that we would, that meeting would only be about this.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be having public speak. Anyone
Oh, I
who
see.
You have to
listens-
have.
We have public, but we wouldn't send the extra
You know
invitation
what,
to
look
people.
who's here today, I mean, I'm not talking about you, Cassie,
No.
but they're not beating down the doors to come to our meetings.
No.
We could advertise our meeting, not make a big deal about trying, this is your one opportunity to come in here and
Sure,
comment, just
sure.
we're gonna be discussing this plan today.
No, and that's what I would do, whatever we have that meeting, I would do it that way. There's the extra piece of like reaching out to those who have made an effort so far, right? Because we want, they've dedicated some time to come to a workshop to do something, right? And so we want, at least for me, like one more chance for them to participate with this draft, like before it goes final.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
just
but
saying,
that
the
should-
gist of it, I was saying just a meeting where we focus on
Right.
it, come first.
We can do that. I mean, we're writing the rules. There's no, I think they're just different.
I mean,
thoughts about how
I
we
guess
do
what
it.
concerns me is sort of what John was saying, that I would like us to have the opportunity to have a meeting where we just focus on the plan so that we feel really comfortable with it or feel really knowledgeable about it, and then have a meeting where we go out of our way to invite people to come,
Mhm.
where we will have established some consensus among ourselves and we feel really comfortable with it. And then, probably we should have, we'd have to react to any public comments we get, obviously.
Right. Okay, I just feel like in that situation, we're putting ourselves more in the situation of like Weston and Sampson, where we're having to answer for things that are not necessarily ours to have written. Like, we can support certain things and we can be knowledgeable about what's in there, but we don't want to be in the position to have to defend or, be proponents necessarily.
I don't understand
Well,
how that
one
would
thing-
happen. They're just two different
Well,
meetings.
because I think if we're talking beforehand and we get all of ourselves and we're kind of all on the same page with this, and then we get a bunch of comments or things that come in and upend that, or then we're forced to defend our position.
But we
on
aren't gonna
something.
defend it, as you said, the public comments are great, and then we'll take them into consideration, but we're not gonna respond to them at that meeting.
Perhaps something that we could do alternatively that Weston and Sampson said was an option, would be to Weston and Sampson to hold a virtual meeting. I'll email it out to everyone, like everyone knows that the EAC meets and that anyone can go to
I
those.
really like
But what
that
we would
idea.
advertise instead to folks when the draft is available is on this date, Weston and Sampson's gonna do a virtual meeting. Anyone who wants to go, submit your public comments there and do it that way. Cause that way people have both an opportunity to submit written comments via email or legit mail, or they can come to that virtual session, or they have my contact information, they can reach out to me. Or if they are really involved, they can come to an EAC meeting. But the main thing you would advertise to the public would be a Weston and Sampson event, purpose of just receiving comments on the plan.
So I guess the question is the order that these meetings will occur. We still just have to get consensus about that.
I see.
Well, if we're gonna do that, then do we, yeah.
Actually, from my point of view, I'm sorry, go ahead, did I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess really what I wanna do is have that 2 plus Cassie meeting. That's what I think I need.
We can definitely do that, that's
And,
separate, yeah.
And maybe we'll have to, like, Cassie may have to meet with several groups, I don't know, but I think that's really what I'm talking about. I just would like to have the opportunity to sit down with some other people and look at it and talk about it.
Okay.
That's what I wanna do. I don't know if you guys feel that
Given
way.
what we've said before about our meetings and what constitutes a quorum, we're advising the mayor and the city council on not making we don't have the right to make any decisions other than make a vote about what we recommend to the mayor. And
Right.
You sure that we can't have 3 people talking about a substantive thing without in that meeting making a decision?
Did you
Maybe
do the
this-
training?
I did, but I quickly forgot it.
I think maybe the point is that there's just a lot of public interest in this, and we don't want there to be any kind of, even, because the purpose of the public open meeting laws, there shouldn't even be a perception of a possible, I see what you're saying. I totally do. My recommendation though would be to avoid that, frankly.
agree.
That's
Right,
just,
I mean,
that's just, yeah.
I mean, right, would it be nice to be able to all just go sit around a table somewhere and not have it be like, not have to put out an official meeting notice or like, make it a thing where we can just like discuss something, but it is, again, it's official city business in the sense that this is a contract that the city has
Yeah.
with an entity that we are advising on, but like as a public body, you know, we are beholden to certain.
Well, I
Yes,
think,
and
I think
also,
maybe a good solution will be for us to have
Free
a
John.
meeting of the five of us, of the six of us, but have it be a dedicated meeting for this.
Yeah, I think that's.
But
amazing.
also, I just want to say to John too, you know, you never know down the road what bizarre response there may be to something, and we don't want to make ourselves vulnerable or the city vulnerable because we didn't follow open meeting
No, I
laws, you know?
understand. I
I mean,
just
we
wanna make
just
sure
can't
we're
do
not
it.
over,
We
we're not
can't.
over interpreting them here. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, you guys know. Okay, so one other thought I have about the order is just that we are sort of owners of this process along with the planning department to a certain extent. And the one thing I'm a little concerned about, other than a sort of a formal invitation, you know, to the public that they know that it's an open meeting and people could comment or whatever. I'm concerned that it gets released and available to a lot of people before we have a chance to say, well, okay, this is in the ballpark. We look bad. If we get something and we have not reviewed it and
I
been able to get it back to them and said, you know, you really, this was great, but you really blew it on this one. And before we go public and start taking criticism for that, you know, I want to.
I agree.
I think we should
That
have a
makes sense.
dedicated meeting first.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
so do we want that to just be the focus of our next, like, regularly scheduled meeting, theoretically January 22nd?
Fine with that.
And then we would, and then we wouldn't even, like, maybe don't even send the draft to all those
Yes,
folks.
that makes sense to
Until
me.
after we have that meeting.
what's the problem?
What do you think?
What do you think, Cass?
Heard anything out there from the peanut gallery on this question?
Do you think our next meeting should be just dedicated to this question?
Are you asking me or
I'm
Cassie?
asking Cassie.
You see me pointing?
Oh,
It doesn't work. Okay, sorry, I don't know. Okay.
all I know is, whatever meeting we have, it needs to be really tightly facilitated. And also, that we could perseverate over this for several years. So I encourage people to come to a conclusion.
Yeah,
Well, what I can say to that is, it would be very easy just have a normal meeting, advertise it the way we normally do, and
Yeah.
not send it out to people, and you guys get the first look at it. Makes total
We've met
sense
the
to me.
formal requirements
So
there.
let's have
And
that be
then,
the
and then
22nd.
when we do,
Okay.
if we do a meeting where we advertise it out for people to come, I have a lot of experience in setting up the meeting in a way that can be very structured.
Okay.
So I can run that by you.
And that could even be later on in January
Yeah.
or early February.
Absolutely.
So I have one more thought about the plan, which is the planning department. I mean, it would be nice to have some sort of an opportunity to discuss their reaction to it
Yes.
as well.
So what my next question for you all was gonna be, if you thought it made sense to also, what I could do this, is go to all the other commissions and committees and be like, what's your thought of this Conservation Commission? What do you think of this plan? Agricultural Commission,
That would be-
what do you think of
You
this
can
plan?
do
Yeah.
that, Cassie, that would be.
It doesn't seem like a crazy thing to do, in terms of like capacity for me. I think it's worth it to try to do that. I mean, obviously it's a timing thing, and I think I can get as many as I can, and maybe we
But I
can
mean,
work together.
it would be, I know Jeff is very busy, but I mean, I'm particularly interested in what
Yes.
his reaction.
Oh,
to the plan
absolutely.
will
well,
be.
we want to invite him to our next meeting.
Yeah,
That'd be
I
cool.
think he would be, that would be great.
Yeah, we can definitely try. He's really busy, but it's worth a
I
try.
know, he's
He
so
definitely
busy.
will review it either way, and then maybe he can just give me comments to share with you guys.
Impressed that he came to
Yeah.
the presentation.
Oh, yeah, I know, he gets a lot done. And then the other piece would be, department heads are reviewing the plan. So what I would wanted to do is, after you guys get a chance to look at it, if you feel comfortable with it, send it out to all the department heads. So
Definitely.
DPW, building department, so on and so forth, as well as the mayor's office. She's gonna wanna take a look at it as well. And then, yeah, so then after all these people get a chance to look and make comments, get it down to a final version, and then maybe you guys look at it, that very final version, then it goes to city council. And I believe it'd be Weston Sampson who would be kind of championing that through. And we'd wanna connect with someone on city council, a city councilor, to help be a champion of it, but I think that would be easy to find. Yeah.
So
easily.
in terms of how we're planning this, you're gonna send us the draft,
Yes, just you guys.
which we will discuss at the January 22nd meeting. And
Yes.
we're gonna invite Jeff, although we know he may not be able to come because I don't know how he does as much as he does, but it'd be wonderful if he could. At the same time, will you send copies to the department heads, or when do we wanna do that piece?
So do you guys want to see it first?
Like at this, when we get it or after we get it?
After we are comfortable having Weston or Sampson release it to a larger group.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have two things. We have, the Weston Sampson virtual meeting, to which the public will be invited. And we have send copies to department heads. So what does that look like in terms of the timing?
It wouldn't be hard, I think, in terms of,
I'm just talking about which
What happens-
order. I'm talking
What
about the
happens
order.
first?
I would say you guys see it first,
Right.
nobody else.
And then we have our meeting on the
Hopefully the
22nd.
result of the meeting on the 22nd is either here's the major revisions that have to happen, and then once those are done, we can send it out, or you guys are like, yeah, we're ready to have it go out. And then
Okay,
if you can, that should be a major focus of trying to at least make that determination at the meeting.
mhm.
Then
Right,
go
and
from
then I
there.
think whether we need to have Weston and Sampson run another
Yeah.
public feedback meeting at that point.
Yeah.
okay, so after our
Yeah,
meeting
yeah,
on the
yeah.
22nd, Cassie will send, well, no, we have to,
We'll
assuming
see the
there aren't
results
our
of that meeting.
our revisions, after so then we'll send our revisions to Weston and Sampson.
And then we'll see how it goes from there.
Mhm.
I wonder if the
Unless we
city
can put it
council
in
wants,
stone yet.
before making a vote.
Say it again.
Yeah,
I wonder if the city council, before making a vote, wants public input, and somehow it can be done in cooperatively with the city council.
yeah, that's a good point, because I know you guys were talking about earlier about ordinance committee trying to take a look at it at least, but I think, well, certainly the review of it for acceptance by city council will be also another opportunity for public comment. But, I think they'll want to see something that has received public comment even before they get to it, it gets to them. So that's why they're kind of like the last.
So after
Not-
our meeting on the 22nd, and we will send the revisions to Weston and Sampson, and then we will send that to the city council, or is that, at that point, will we send them to the department heads?
Department heads, I'd say. City council's last, in my opinion,
Okay.
if that makes sense to everybody else.
Okay, and we may or may not feel like we want to do the meeting with the public before the city council.
If it
Yeah, or
happens
if
at
we even
all.
need to do one at all.
Right, because
Yeah,
because
it may or may not.
originally the process was the city council.
Yeah.
And then there's a 30-day review. That's what usually happens with stuff like this. Okay. So it goes to department heads and then it goes to, the city council.
We also don't have to be locked in here, I don't
Right.
think. I mean,
Right.
having a plan is good, but
Agreed.
let's see what happens. It could-
Right. Right, I'm just trying, I have to get it in my head what we're talking about here.
It's helpful for me as well to try to give Weston and Sampson an idea of what to expect in terms of what we're gonna ask them to do. So
Yeah.
I like keeping it open that we could do a meeting that they facilitate with just for the public. And at a minimum, emailing out to the public once you guys say it's okay to go out.
And as
Yeah.
far as the process, I'm sorry, I know I'm getting weird about this, but the city council will review it, but then does the public review period happen before they can accept it?
The very last thing I think that happens is that it goes before city council and they choose whether or not to accept it or not. So that is the last,
Yeah,
there's
well,
no
there's-
public comment after
No,
No.
city council
Okay.
sees
nor is
it.
it a required public.
I
comment.
feel like
I don't think.
Let me just go back and look, because I feel like there was.
This doesn't even have, my guess is that this doesn't even have the status of a zoning ordinance. or
Correct.
something.
It's not
Right.
binding, it's just the plan.
Yeah.
But we're gonna hold to it, obviously, we're gonna try to. But yeah, Connie, I don't think that it needs to go. City council
So it
either
never
accepts it or
has
they
to go,
don't.
it's not like the aggregation.
You're thinking of
plan.
aggregation.
Right.
I think
I
I
see.
am.
Yes,
I think
it's-
that's
yeah.
exactly what
No.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, so there's no requirement for public comment, but I think we should try to some degree. All that needs to have happen is that city council accepts it at some point, then it's done.
Okay, so I'm just gonna
So-
get rid of this then.
Yeah, so I'd be curious, and that probably just needs to go back to the Weston and Sampson contract / plan, like to see are there any other steps that they had listed in this part of the process, right? That maybe we need to just be mindful, or they.
Based off of my discussion with them last time I spoke with them last Thursday, no, it
Okay.
really is up to you guys how you wanna go about it, cause the next thing that's on the schedule is to present it to city council. So everything, we can do whatever we want in between in terms of outreach for comments, draft review.
All right, so let's get the draft, everyone review. We will spend a disproportionate amount of time in our next meeting, focused on this. Though we will have to, cover some other things too, and we'll talk more about that here in a second.
Are we sending copies to the department heads, and if so, is that before
After.
the city council?
Before the
Yes.
city council, yes, because we want, that's part of the city council is only gonna be voting, seeing like the final version and like voting on that essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next meeting, and then if we feel like we need to schedule an extra meeting after that for further discussion, or, for whatever reason, we can do that. But meanwhile, we'll just kind of handle it within the course of our regular meeting schedule for now. But we will do that before we send it out to anybody else, for additional comment.
Quick time check. So,
Yes.
and I agree with what you just said. So it's 4:09. There's a meeting in here at 5.
Is there? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. We shouldn't be going past 5 o'clock anyway. Yeah, we somehow it's like,
Always.
Moore's law, or what's the ideal gas line? It expands to fill the container. It's been given. So, okay. But this is also kind of will inform the next time, because next time we're gonna talk so much about the climate action plan, but we're also maybe gonna have to talk about the heat of the electrified plan a little bit too, depending on what's going on there. So we'll need to reserve some time for that. Maybe a little bit about aggregation. Of the other stuff here, the school bus electrification piece, I know they're not really too much update.
All we need to do is know about now or the next month is to try to arrange with the new school committee.
Right,
A presentation if they still wanna do that. Hopefully they still,
right.
and if anybody has any suggestions about who to be talking to about that, when do they are they seated?
Right.
It's January, are they seated?
It must be.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to reach out to Megan now too. and just
Yeah, I
say-
called her about when I called her about one other thing, she get back and I'll try again.
Okay.
Not this, but I'll try something like that.
Okay,
Or-
yeah, I mean, it's
or
the
I'll ask the
holiday
mayor who's
season.
in it,
Yeah, I don't
on the
know,
committee.
the mayor is on the committee. Yeah, I don't know how much their schedule is already set for like when the meetings will happen come
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, the agenda items and what
Right.
go on them, yeah, I mean, they may be
Right.
loaded down and.
If January may not be, if that's the first full meeting of the new.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you wanna try to get
See what
a
they
second
say,
meeting or
as soon
something.
as we can, yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully there's also
That's
gonna
all
be,
there is.
hopefully there'll be a piece about this like within the climate action plan as
And if
well.
I have, if it's mid, late January or February meeting, I'll have a chance to maybe revise that PowerPoint to be a little more up to date on what the current strategies look like.
Right.
and prepare, yeah.
John, I'll be seeing the superintendent tomorrow in Hampshire. If there's anything you want me to do, whatever.
Hampshire?
Yeah,
Hampshire County.
Where should we
Hampshire
go?
Regional?
Yeah.
Hampshire Regional. Hampshire Regional?
yes, Hampshire Regional School District
Okay.
Superintendent.
Surprised me you're talking about that rather than Easthampton, but,
Well, that's where she
That's where
works.
She works there, yeah, she.
okay, and I had mentioned to you something about, I talked about, let me get a hold of you separately from now.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for reminding me.
And I just
Okay.
want to tell John, the group that I was in at the workshop, there was a lot of discussion about electric buses. I mean, I do think that a lot of people in the city would very much
Mhm.
support it, just
Absolutely.
throwing that out
Yeah,
to
they
you.
probably just don't know how.
No, they have no
expensive
idea.
it is.
They have no idea.
Okay, the electric vehicle infrastructure, there's not a lot to talk about that. We don't really have an active plan right there. I did notice that some of the chargers in Mountain View did appear to be roped off again.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll
yeah,
look
so,
out.
I don't know what's happening there, but, good to check on it. There was definitely a lot of talk about that at the climate action plan, about what to do, and like that edict is also talking about this too, right? Like, how do we get this infrastructure in place to support this coming wave of electric vehicles that, is already coming, it's already happening, it's only gonna get bigger.
That's put in right now.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, but the opt-in stretch code, kind of, you have a quick update?
Yes, as you know, I did meet with Councilor Derby, and he asked me to send him a formal letter requesting that it be put to the city council, which I did. And as far as I know, he has not acted on that as of yet. I talked to Connie Denham about it at the workshop, and she was also very supportive and asked me to send her information about it, which I haven't done. But she seemed like she would be very interested in trying to move it forward as well. Oh, and also, at the last meeting, we talked about me talking to BJ, and I stopped in and asked to, her to get in touch with me. I haven't heard back from her, but I do understand that it will be very important to try to coordinate with her, because I do think that contractors and builders and even homeowners really need help understanding what the new stuff that's already there, let alone adding another layer on that. And, you know, I know that the state, the DOER has been doing workshops regularly. I've been to a couple of them. But still, I think that BJ can't be expected to be the only point person in the city. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's a huge issue, just the way things are now,
Right.
over and above whether or not we do the opt-in code. I do think it's something that the city needs to do something about.
Well, it comes back into the electrify thing too, right, where it's like, you know, you need information out there to the right people,
Right.
whether they're homeowners or whether they're contractors or whatever it is.
But my understanding is the contractors are kind of freaking out.
Yeah,
And especially, and as was explained to me at the last meeting, oh no, yeah, I think you told me about this, is that, you know, the fire department has certain permits that they're supposed to be in charge of, and that's all new, and the solar panel ordinances have changed. There are all these new rules that are suddenly in place that people have to get up to speed about.
mhm.
And I don't, you know, I guess the question is, what's the city doing about that? I'm not aware that they're doing anything other than telling BJ she has to figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
Are the
It's a lot.
state, whatever, DOER or CEC, workshops that you're talking about focused on people who wanna know how the law works, or focused on installers and designers, and how do you design a building to be compliant? Because
well,
they're two kind of
they are
separate.
different things. I think that the workshops are primarily for contractors.
yeah,
Okay.
people are doing.
But I know that like there's a, I don't know if it's a state or national architecture association that also I know is giving a lot of workshops to people who are designing buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's before even the opt-in, right, because the energy codes are already changing, or already changed this
Right,
year,
right,
right? So there's still
right.
people catching up from that, whether we even go the extra mile of the opt-in stretch code.
Right.
I realize we just kind of skipped over the green community. Greg, is there anything real quick
No,
to touch on
all I
there?
have to say is that I submitted the annual report on time and waiting for the results, if they have any comments about it.
Okay.
I don't have any recommendations for grants this time. I say wait till I get the climate action plan done,
Yeah,
even just on a capacity level for myself, unfortunately.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
between that and the electrify thing, definitely, I mean, things to, and again, maybe that's gonna be something we can piggyback on for an additional grant, right? I do think that's a jumping off point, and those things can work together, and I think that's a 2024 priority.
Yeah.
All right, and then under new other business, I did make a quick note here, John, of the micro hydro thing, because you put that in my inbox. I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know how feasible or what sort of time frame it would operate on, but.
It's pipes, smoking pipes right now, that's all. I asked,
Can you
maybe
explain
I'll
to me
bang
what
on his
that
door,
is?
it means small scale hydroelectric generation
Oh.
on streams and ponds and things that, you know, can be
It sounds
25
like you guys
25 to
just
50
do it in the street
kilowatts.
right now. You have
Yeah, put it in the.
Yeah, right,
Anyway,
Just-
some other time, but
yeah,
but I asked, maybe you could put a bug in, is it Dave or Dan Murphy?
Dan Murphy,
Dan's-
Dan.
I sent him an email saying, do you know if this city has ever had it evaluated? And I haven't
Interesting.
heard back from him yet.
yeah.
Just Conservation Commission piece, I have big flags about Wetland Protection Act and trying to
About,
being compliant with Wetlands Protection Act to try to implement things like that. That would be a
What
huge hurdle.
Wetlands
The
protection.
Wetlands
Oh.
Protection Act, work that happens within a stream needs to be
Yeah.
compliant with that.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be a difficulty, but that's to be
I'm sure.
investigated in the
It's also
future.
free electricity.
I know,
You're
I know,
talking
I'm
about,
right
like,
there with
using the
you.
existing, like,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there is a dam, that little bridge like
Electronic
on
one.
Route 10 up to Northampton,
Alright.
that
I
actually
like
is
it.
a little dam. It used
Yeah.
to be used for power,
Right.
like the 18, something or
I
other,
don't
but
know.
there's actually
People do
something there,
Yeah, it's very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, anyone have anything else for the time being?
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yay.
Yes, happy
So
holidays.
glad you're here, really,
Yeah.
so glad.
Okay,
Thank
so, yeah, between now, so we'll go for the 22nd. Everyone have a good holiday.
Yeah.
Think about what are, other priorities we might have. We've got the climate action plan, we've got aggregation, we've got the electrify program. Those are kind of the big three highlights. Electrification, school bus electrification will come back to us hopefully with a little more momentum. We can get in front of the school committee and the stretch code. Those are kind of our big five right now. And then everything else is
Idling.
but we don't have anything.
Well, the only thing about that is, when I spoke to a couple of city councilors, they wanted to talk to
We gotta adjourn.
the fire chief, and they never did. I would just like to go talk to him just as not as a member of this committee, but just as me, and ask him, sound him out. How would he feel about it? Whether he'd be interested in getting involved. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think it's
Talking about
okay for me to
enforcing
do
idling,
that?
enforcing the idling law?
Yeah.
Let's do that,
Talking
what?
about enforcing the idling law?
Yeah.
We got 1 minute, the
One
next
minute.
meeting's coming in.
One minute.
I mean, I'm just asking, do you think it'd be okay if I went and spoke to
It's
him?
always okay for you as a
All right.
private citizen.
Then I won't go as a member of this committee unless you guys want me to.
You can mention your participation in the committee.
Okay. Okay.
Depends on what your feel is.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Seconded, all in favor?
aye.
Adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.